TV has the pleasure of being with Mike Brandy and Louise Brandy from California. Mike is getting ready to make a trip cross-country. Louise, from what Mike has shared with me, you are a major asset in making this all happen. And why don't we start with you, Louise, and let us know a little bit about how it feels to be a caregiver, and also just the it's a miracle from the conversations I've had with Mike that what he's been able to accomplish with all the different traumatic brain injury, also stroke, and some liver problems, and also a cancer, it sounds like. So you guys have really been through it, and but you're still very passionate, have a big heart, and want to help other people. So God love you for that. So please share some information about how it feels to be a caregiver in this particular situation.
Well, sure, Scott. Thanks for having us, too. It's always great to share the story. Everybody has one, and I think ours sometimes isn't that unique, but Mycle sure is. And so when we first started on this journey, we were simply just dating each other. And we found ourselves against his first stroke, which came from a brain injury. And when you don't expect something like that to ever happen, and it does happen to you, I think the most important thing is how the person reacts and how they take it. And Mycle, being as unique as he is, really is a fighter and didn't want this to get him down in any way. So he immediately changed his lifestyle and started going back to school instead of the work he was doing, which was very impressive. And because Mycle does things in a very unique way, I always tell him it was kind of fun to watch what he was doing next, because every twist and turn that life would throw at him, he was able to find a different way to get around it. So being a caregiver for Mycle, while it's quite dynamic, I would say it's actually very rewarding. It's challenging because we never know from one day to the next when something will happen. Especially as a stroke survivor, you're always susceptible to strokes or the lasting effects from the stroke. And I think that's what makes it so one of those things that you have to keep the positive outlook, and you have to continue to share. So things that you're doing, Scott, are extremely important because it allows us to share. It allows us to get outside of ourselves and know that our story may help somebody else, which is why we like to do it, and why we stay so connected to folks like yourself and to the community to help create awareness, know that it can happen to anybody, any age, for any reason, and that we try to ensure that people prevent it, first of all, but if they can't, what they can do to recuperate and to recover in a way that they can still have a healthy lifestyle afterwards.
Now, have you received any kind of support other than from Mike? Because I'm sure Mike was being your cheerleader while you were you know, helping him out as well. But did you receive any kind of support, family support, groups, or anything to that effect?
Oh yes, yes. In fact, for when Mycle first did his first walk, we found ourselves flung into social media right away. We had just started to learn more and more about Facebook pages. So we got on Facebook and entered that community, and it's amazing what social media can do for support. That first page that he started with a very small amount, he met Bob Miller, who had a page called Stroke Suck, and that community truly, truly helped us, not just with moral support, but also giving us a look out on where things were ahead. There were people who offered to help along the way. So we got a lot of support, starting with social media. My family, my sister, was quite imperative as part of the process. Mycle didn't really have that big of a plan. There wasn't a big group going across the country with him. He just wanted to take off and go off by himself. And so there we were trying to figure out, how do we make this happen for him? So every day my sister and I were on the phone calling up ahead to the little hotels along the way to see if they could, first of all, give us maybe a little bit of a break because it was for a good cause, and second, to see if they would pick him up where he ended that day, and then the next morning drop him back off. So it was a series of phone calls every day to make sure that we were staying up ahead for him, and if the hotel couldn't do it, we would find someone to give him a ride just to get in at night. but Mycle wanted to walk every stitch of this walk, so not only did someone need to pick him up, but they needed to drop him off right where he had ended the night before. So that in itself was a huge feat. We also got support from the American Heart Association. There were offices in cities that he went to that helped provide avenues in for him to visit hospitals, or they themselves would welcome him in their offices. There were hospital personnel who helped all the time in the major cities and even in the smaller ones. Anytime Mycle wanted to even just walk by and walk in and maybe talk to someone in the stroke ward, they were always willing to help him and make sure that he could find people to also share his story with. Mycle also loves to talk to healthcare professionals. They do so much to help people recover, and so many of them have said, wow, it's so neat to see somebody come back after they've recovered. She said, we just usually see people who, if they make it, they just leave, and we really never see how they turn out for them. So it's really rewarding to be part of those, and to visit stroke support groups along the way, brain injury groups. Mycle's had an opportunity to join groups that happen to be having a meeting at the exact time he's walking through, which is quite karmic and really good in the long run too. So, and then we have friends who have joined him along the route. We have had stroke survivors who have offered to drive for part of the route for him too. So certainly we did not do this alone. A lot of help from a lot of people, and even just like I said, the social media and that moral support you get online is actually incredibly powerful.
Talking about moral support, wow, I mean, what kind of support has Mike gotten from you, and how many wonderful things you just said about him, all well-deserved, I might add. So, Mike, just meeting you and getting to know Louise, and this is actually, mine and Louise, actually, basically our first real conversation. We had a short one earlier, but that was it. But this is our first real conversation. So please tell me what it means to have a caregiver such as Louise. And just let me add that many times when these kind of situations happen, when either a married person or somebody that would be dating or even engaged, in my case, that fell apart, unfortunately. And but I still consider it a blessing that my former fiance stayed with me for 3 years, because we got absolutely no support from anyone. She didn't know which way to go, and everybody was encouraging her to get away from that brain damaged son of a gun before she was taking care of me for the rest of my life with brain damage. But there are people that, as Mycle has pushed through, and myself too, that hopefully, you know, we let people know that there are people that are able to push through that. So what does it mean to have that caregiver there to you, Mike?
Scott, having Louise next to me was like a rock. There was no way that I could have done this without her. There was no way that I could have done a lot of things without her. I wouldn't have gone back to school had she not been going to school, and as an example, told me that you can accomplish the same thing that I can accomplish by going to school. She encouraged me to do that. She, you know, when I was getting crazy on the drugs, when the drugs were just tearing me apart and making me a different person.
Now we're talking about medications. We're talking about medications, just to be clear for our viewers.
Right, yeah. No, it's the morphine and the Dilaudid and the Demerol, and specifically Stanol NS, which is a liquid that you shoot into your nose, and the capillaries of your nose take it quickly to the brain pain. Well, the problem with it is it's 30% more powerful than morphine. And I had doctors that were giving it to me per request. Well, the more I took it, the more I wanted it. And so my request went from 2 bottles of Stanol a week to 3 bottles to 4 bottles. And finally, it got to 7 bottles a week. That was 1 bottle of Stanol a day. And I was becoming addicted. And I would have remained addicted and probably be dead now, had my wife, my sweet, wonderful wife, not said, listen, dude, you got to pull yourself together.
Well, let me just mention, too, I don't want doctors, there's one thing that's very important about this. Doctors need to be careful, and they need to not give too much, but also any doctor that feels like he's doing the right thing for his patients needs to continue to do that. They don't need to get caught in that trap of feeling like, oh, well, I might be overprescribing or something. If someone needs the medication, you give it to them because they need it. All too many times I'm hearing that doctors say, oh, well, you know that there's things going on right now that overprescribing and everything. Doctors should not be Doctors should be doctors. When they know that somebody needs something or they feel they have a gut feeling that they need it, they should be giving it to them. They should go by their gut, and they shouldn't be worried about what is going on within society. Either they're doing the right thing or the wrong thing. As long as they know they're doing the right thing, continue to give the medication. So, but in your particular case, you saw you had a problem, and you were able to address that issue. So please continue.
I was only able to address that issue with Louise's help. And the thing is that the doctors can prescribe pain medication. They don't have to prescribe narcotics for every event. And trust me, there were some events where narcotics, actual opiates, were necessary to take, to relieve the pain. The problem is that I didn't need it all the time, and the doctors were not being fervent in their delivery of these drugs to me. And I didn't have the willpower to stop. And Louise said, you have to stop or we're going to have to stop because you're not the same man that you used to be. And so I had to make a decision at that point. When we came to that point in our relationship, I had to make a decision. And that's when I decided to go to the detox and went through the detox thing, and then I went through the RAND pain management thing in San Diego. And of course, that got me to the point to where I could pull within myself what needed to happen to make me overcome this horrible addiction to the drugs that I was on. And it was a horrible addiction. I could not get enough. And I went to law school on state LOUISE. I took one of the bar exams on state LOUISE. And there's just no way that you can function on that stuff. And sure, it was taking away the pain, but it was making me a vegetable. And so alternative medications sometimes might be better than having the opiates and the hardcore drugs. I don't know, because when I decided to quit, I quit everything. I went cold turkey. And I stopped the Stadol. I refused to take any opiates. I told Louise that I don't want any opiates if I have another stroke. No opiates. It's a hard decision to make because I'm in pain all the time. Since 1988, when I had my first stroke, the pain has never gone away. But there are other ways of dealing with it than opiates. And some people can't, and you're right. We have to at least extend the opportunity of those people to have relief. And if the only way to get relief is through opiates, well then, God bless them. I just hope that the opiates themselves aren't worse than what they're trying to cure or they're trying to appease.
And myself personally, medications were shoved at me left and right, and I don't think that was bad. Actually, they were trying to work something out, but I came to the conclusion that they were not helping me, that nothing was helping me. I was hoping it was going to, but we went through the whole host of medications. They didn't work, and I said, I just have to stop taking all medications because I need to make my mind as clear as I possibly can. And that was the right thing for me, too. So I fully understand what you're talking about. Thank God I didn't have to go through everything that you did, but, I do understand.
Well, once I made that decision, then everything pretty much changed for me, Scott, because it was a hard decision to make, but it was the best decision that I ever made. Because after I quit the opiates, that's when I began walking back to the gym and back and forth to the gym. Now, my house to the gym is almost exactly 3 miles. So I was walking round trip back and forth to the gym every day, sometimes twice a day. And, I lost 100 pounds doing that. and it got the walking into my system. And that's when we got the postcard from the American Stroke Association inviting us to do the San Diego Rock and Roll Marathon. And that's how I met Bob Miller. And that's how Bob Miller became my strongest non-family supporter of all. He did more to help me get my first walk begun. He got me people that could help me along the way. He showed me hospitals that I could visit. He showed me people that were part of his stroke group that I could visit, that would come and walk with me, like my Kanish that walked, the blind man that walked for 6.5 miles with me in Surprise, Arizona. So everything changed once I made a decision that the opiates were destroying my life and I needed to change my life. And then I made the contract with LOUISE, and we got the thing in the mail from the Stroke Association, and I started doing marathons. Once I started doing marathons, my whole life had changed completely. There is no before marathon Mycle anymore. I ceased to exist before marathons, because after I started doing marathons, my whole demeanor changed. And that's when I decided to walk across America. And it was going and being around other stroke survivors who were experiencing the same thing. We had other stroke survivors that walked with us.
Mike, let me just ask, when is this particular walk going to start to take place?
Well, right now I'm trying to raise funds. I need to raise $5,000 before I can even begin. It costs money to board me and to feed me, and unless companies will sponsor me, I have to foot the bill for those things. The thing is, I need to raise at least $5,000 to begin. Right now, I've raised $925 on my GoFundMe account. So I need to raise about $4,075 more dollars, and I figure once I get to $4,000, I'll start really training hard and getting ready for it.
Hopefully by spring.
Okay, well, great. Well, we will be checking back in with you, and we've already done some interviewing with you, and we'll have some more information coming out soon. Thank you both so very much, and I'm so happy for both of you that you have been able to do what you've been able to do for each other and for other people as well.
Thank you, Scott.
Thanks a lot.